Hi, everyone. We apologize for the technical difficulty. Apparently, we got dropped. So, thank you so much for tuning back in. We'll give people a few minutes, just a minute or two to get back on the live. That's the first time that's happened. Um, we apologize, but luckily, nobody was in the middle of reading. We were actually about to begin the next reader. For those of you who missed and are just tuning in, missed out the first few poets. We had incredible 8-year-old Nyla from London. We had Mark already. We've had Alando and Christine, Sonia, Iodele, and now we're going into Wendy. So just to give you guys all a second, this is the Mayday poetry reading in case you don't know what you just signed into and somebody just sent it to you. And we will continue on with the reading. Thank you all for bearing with us. This is a new reality, and this is what it is. It is what it is. So, next poet coming up is Wendy Trevino. Please, please, please join me in welcoming Wendy.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to read like 4 poems. I'm going to read 2 from that book that I kind of always read, but maybe you guys haven't heard them, so I'm going to read them. Okay, starting with summer 2016. For Antifa Sacramento and those young people in San Jose who beat the bejesus out of Trump supporters. It's 11:30 in San Francisco. Britain has voted to leave the EU. Last week, the Golden State Warriors lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals. We watched the game on a flat-screen TV set up outside a bookstore in downtown Oakland, right next to a vegetarian Chinese restaurant that had been shot up during a vigil the week before. Josh wanted Cleveland to win, mostly for Tamir Rice, mostly hoping Black people in Cleveland could finally get their riot. I want that too. This is the week after I turned 38 and 49 gay and queer men and women, Black and non-Black Latinx, nearly half Puerto Rican, are killed in a mass shooting at a gay nightclub in Orlando, right down the street from where the contestant of a popular reality television show had been shot and killed by her stalker the night before. Not too far from a Disney resort where 5 alligators are captured and gutted by authorities looking for the remains of a 2-year-old boy who was dragged by an alligator into a lake a couple of days later. This is the same month a gorilla born and raised where I was, in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas, is killed at the Cleveland Zoo after he drags a toddler who falls into his exhibit around. Later that week, Jane Goodall calls the zoo to say it looked like the gorilla was trying to protect the kid. I don't know. This is weeks before white nationalists with the Traditionalist Workers' Party stab anti-racists who stop them from holding a rally in Sacramento. Before a frightening number of people argue that the rights of the white nationalists were violated, like that's a bad thing. This is after a crowd of mostly teenagers, mostly non-white, chased supporters of Donald Trump's presidential campaign out of San Jose. After someone takes a picture of a white kid running frantically away from a group of non-white kids running after him. This is the same month it's announced Puerto Rico's water will no longer be monitored for quality because having defaulted on its debt, the country can't afford it. After the murder of 2 activists who exposed the contamination of Flint, Michigan's water supply. After militiamen open carry as they delivered bottled water to Flint residents. And I'm writing from the future where all over the United States, Black people are blocking highways and carrying guns to protest where the cops can see them. This is the week cell phone videos of 2 Black men being murdered by cops go viral on consecutive days. Before Micah X. Johnson kills 5 cops in Dallas during a Black Lives Matter march. This is a couple of weeks after teachers block highways in Oaxaca and an anarchist is arrested and run over by cops. And I keep thinking I will call this 11:30 because that's the time I started writing one night a month ago. And it's something I'll come back to, more like a workday than a ray of light through a cloud. I guess that's what feels different. Like highways full of people there's no way around and barricades and teenagers setting cop cars on fire. It's inevitable. Maybe we'll see each other. Okay, so.
Thank you for that. That was amazing.
Oh,
that was awesome.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. So I will read, trying to decide if I will read 2 more from here or 1 more. I'm going to go with the 2 more. Okay, so the next one is called Trampa de Dedos, Finger Trap. It's after Raquel Salas Rivera. Should you put a ring on it? spiral out, forget, this is another becoming, you turn in like Lucille Clifton, turning into her own, turning on into her own self, at last turning out of the white cage, turning out of the lady cage, turning at last. A person born with 12 fingers isn't a metaphor for anything, but if you would like her to, she'll read your palm. When you meet her, that's what she says. It's 2008. Not too long before the stock market crash, at a poetry retreat in an offensively named town where timeshare people go to ski and dream about Aspen. Around this time, you loved Charles Simick's translation of Vasco Popa's sequence, The Little Box, more than just about any other book of poems. The little box can be anywhere and nowhere. You can store and lose the entire world inside her as the little box falls in love with herself and conceives a little box that falls in love with herself and conceives infinite little boxes. You maintain that sequence is good, but in retrospect, your love of the little box seems like a compromise. So many young poets you meet between 2004 and 2008 have been influenced by Michael Hamburger's translations of poems by Paul Celan. But you can't read those beautiful translations without remembering what the poet Joe Wenderoth said about Celan's suicide note to his wife. All it said was her name in all light. It may be written in French. The historical context of Celan's poems. You can't stop thinking about that. At the same time, a significant number of young writers, many of them teenage girls, are chatting online with Tao Lin or some other depressed man in his early 20s. They call this alt-lit. This is before one alt-lit woman turns up in an anarchist space in San Francisco and starts sleeping with one of the editors of a communist journal called Endnotes, but after Kenneth Goldsmith transcribes the September 11th, 2001 issue of the New York Times and publishes Day, and writes about being the most boring writer that ever lived. At the same time, more and more artists, young artists and writers move to East Austin. It is recommended that you spend a few good years teaching English in Korea or Japan. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians are killed by the United States. If talking about the past historically doesn't mean recognizing it, quote, the way it really was, to what extent does it involve something like translation? Does translation require a person or just language anymore? What is the legal age of consent in New Jersey and New York? These perhaps were some of the big questions some people were asking. Providing scientific articles to those at elite universities in the first world, but not to children in the global south, that was another. Aaron Schwartz left Reddit. Open access is nothing like an exhibit at a museum. It's not even like a museum membership, not even like a highway shut down. The tech buses have been around a lot longer than many people think. Fukuyama had predicted an obsession with form removed from anything like political life, as if the hipsters of the mid-aughts would invent nihilism. Some poets began to speak in terms of a sincerity, irony, binary. It's possible the binary doesn't apply to anything of note, not even in the always late United States where young people in black fuck up Starbucks and the Gap during the 1999 WTO protests in Seattle. Then again, some of them claim a swastika can be ironic, while others claim it's merely cultural, which is to say marginalized people should calm down, which is to suggest a swastika is a swastika is a swastika, which is to say it's a swastika you're afraid of, what the swastika can do, and not the history of the people who make it what it is, which is not over, which is dead wrong. Okay, so one more from here, and then one or two more that I have that are new.
Can we do one more? Because we have
Oh, sure. Yeah. Last one is Revolutionary Letter. One thing I've learned, come to a provisional conclusion about, when it comes to fighting, there are people who will help you fight, and there are people who will not, and there are people who will stand in the way. Find the people who will help. Be loud and clear so they know where you are. Focus on them. Be encouraged by them. Encourage them. Work with them. Don't worry about the people who won't help. They will be of no help even if they are on your side. Waste as little energy as possible fighting people who stand in the way, which is to say, don't talk, don't argue. Just get them out of the way of the fight you came for. TLDR, you don't need or want the people who you know aren't with you to be with you. Really, you don't. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
Great advice on that one. I love that last one.
Oh, thank you.
I do too, Wendy. Thank you. It encouraged me right now.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. Yeah. Really. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for being here. And
that's great, Wendy.
You actually surf, Wendy? You back? I see the little surfboard.
No, that's my boyfriend.
Dope. Cool.
I can't do it.
Nice backdrop. We appreciate you and your poems. We're now going to invite to the virtual stage. I'm so honored and excited to invite this poet here from South Florida, the very own little Haiti born and raised. Calvin Early is a part of Poetry for the People, but also just a poet on it in his own right, who's been a part of the poetry community here in South Florida for years, back in the Will the Real One days. He is also the founder of Spoken Word Exchange. He's also an incredible photographer, dope father, and just a great friend and a stand-up guy. He's really great person, and he works also with Planned Parenthood, protecting and supporting the rights of women across South Florida. So thank you so much for showing up for us, Calvin. I can't wait to hear what you have to share. Join me in welcoming Calvin Early.
So I live by a strict code of ethics. I keep my heart whole. I keep my mind strong. So when the time comes, I will not fold under pressure. I've been called bold for my progressions. Seems my oppressor's upset for the losses acquired by what was sold on his investment. I told my aggressor, well, I cannot afford to be ordinary, nor will I masquerade as a mute. I'd find it a complicated process to pose as a recluse, and besides, I am far too attractive in invention to be sat next to the toaster oven. Believe me, I am bread and butter both. A feast eaten on the backs of blacks, cracked pepper on a back porch, as forced as a seedless watermelon, such an unsweetened, ugly truth, and I am still beautiful. I am still a strong back, black face, and obligated hands. I've been auction block, auctioned off, offered freedom on a guarded land. Can you imagine being force-fed a religion while still trying to find the God in man? Yet here I stand. Still 400 years of bondage, bartered for some college and career options, and I'm still Marcus. Still Malcolm, still Martin, still marching for the bodies of little black boys martyred, made targets. Of course, they fit the description when it's as simple as black and breathing. There are no laws in a brick forest for a designated killing season, neither for the people sent to protect us, nor those that look like us. So do not be so selective about which homicides you advocate for. It is all loss. It is all death, and we are all one step from where we came. Slavery, by any other name, is still chains and shackles. I still need to be mindful. I still find it easier to speak to my own reflection behind a blindfold. I got white folk I'd rather not hurt or upset or give any reason not to give me a fair chance, but my hands are tied, my legs are bound. All I got is this mouth and whatever's left of this borrowed time. I cannot afford to be cordial with you. You were not born with the benefit of privilege. Everything that existed before you is still here before you, or were you convinced that it wasn't because you pay a mortgage to stay in them slave quarters? I find it awkward and often awful that all too often we are also eager to read whatever the author offers us and digest it, as if you can't smell the chitlins in these messages. Like your cousin don't still stay in them same projects. Probably got a lot of kids and a lot of good intent. Would do better, but better make them up your rent and cut your stamps. Because when you live like this, poverty and prosperity both seem to be in someone else's hands. But they'll tell me that Willie Lynch is a myth, that racism doesn't exist and generational poverty is a choice. Look, all I got is this voice. And with whatever's left of this borrowed time, I'll tell you this: nothing has changed. It is just that now it is more evident than ever that we are all slaves. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So once again, Aja, thank you for having me. This is awesome. Big ups to all the poets that have gone before me. I'm blown away. Like I needed this in a way I didn't know I needed this. And I'm so glad for it to be occurring. It feels good. I feel very full right now. I'm in a good space, and you know, we've had to switch things around. As Aja mentioned, I work for Planned Parenthood of Southeast and North Florida as a community health educator, education and outreach facilitator. Much of my work is in the same community that I grew up in, Liberty City and Little Haiti. But we've had to shift things in the past couple months. We've had to shift things because it's changing and we can't go into the schools and facilitate the education the way that we want to. And it's so I've been spending a lot more time in our health centers and getting a lot closer to our work in our health centers in a way that I haven't in my 6 years there. And when I tell you that our services are so needed and the work is so needed, that people are pouring in and they are singing, like they're coming from other states, Arkansas, Texas. I saw somebody else from Alabama. You know what I mean? And for all sorts of services. And it's very important. And these times are telling. And one of the things that is most telling of is that there will be a new normal beyond this. And there can't not be, because we're all forced to sit with ourselves and really think and reflect and challenge ourselves and grow. And one of the things that I believe in most is that the most ideal situation is to be able to do something that you truly, truly love, to be able to work in something that you truly, truly, truly love. And sometimes we have to push ourselves for that because we can get complacent. So I'm going to go into this last piece. Turn off. Oh, gotcha. All right. So I got it from an anonymous source that the difference between living and existence is a matter of choice, that it is about the battle in your voice, and it is the way that you rattle every bone in your body each morning and give the day what you created in your sleep. It is about how you break and then you leak and you ink out loud about everything that you think, because it is not about what you have done. It is about how you grow. So you've got to learn how to live until living is the only thing that you know. Now, I'm a little too old for building forts, but every morning I'm twisting sheets between bedposts. I'd rather be asleep than see these people I work for, and it's got me boxing up my thoughts. I spend 8 hours watching clocks or cheating death amongst these heartbeaters. These soft breathers are an odd puppet-like people, and I feel out of place here. I spend most days making race cars out of staplers or paper plane in private jets to far off places. I consider this an escape from conversations with ghosts. People too afraid to assist with their own growth, so they step like such thin glass as if breaking were the worst thing that could happen. To be shattered into so much possibility is terrifying for the I play it safest. For the other people watchers and the maybe laters, these people who hold their breath waiting for God to make them an offer. So every day I see at least 12 dead bodies walking. And I can't help but wonder how they fit so many coffins inside of one office, or why cubicles look like pine boxes. Even this nameplate on my desk is a tombstone, and I'm afraid of my own death. I'm afraid that this is it. What if my success is a grave that I've been paid to dig for myself? What if this desk is the best that I will ever do? And if that's true, then death is when being common becomes comfortable. When you start running from what you believe in for what's needed at the moment, get gone in the wind, leave your dreams in the dust, and trust that somehow your 9 to 5 will provide for these unconscious thoughts. And it's a constant struggle, trying to muffle the sound of your most honest muscle. You know, they say the mind is a terrible thing to waste, but the heart is the worst part of God you could ever ignore. Yet we get so good at pretending until we start having these feelings like maybe I'm meant for something bigger, or at least something in addition to the given circumstance, because dancing for graveyard shifts and slaving for paychecks is killing the moment. You know, I got it on good faith that right now is never the same twice. So you've got to live out loud until they kill you, because your fear will kill you. So when opportunity knocks, do not let closed doors get behind you. Find you some purpose and go hard about it. Feel so that no one gets to each tongue. You are a part of their hands, and then smile and dance and laugh. If you make living your craft, watch how good you get at it. And when the dead people ask you how you did it, you remind them that the difference between living and existence is a matter of choice. That it is about the battle in your voice. And it is the way that you rattle every bone in your body each morning and give the day what you created in your sleep. It is about how you break and then you leak and you ink out loud about everything that you think, because it is not about what you have done. It is about how you grow. So you've got to learn how to live until living is the only thing that you know.
Thank you, Calvin. You done rattled the streams in service. Okay, there was a moment you was going so deep. About the battle in your voice. I love it. Bro, I love it. Thank you so much. That offered a lot of just a lot of encouragement right now, and to all the workers who resonate.
By the way, that was about my previous job, not my current job.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm at my current job.
Word. Thank you so much. Okay, going on to our next poet. It's a little behind because the little cutoff. I want you all to join me. Actually, the first time I met this poet was with Jose, and we were all at this mass poetry event or something, and y'all were the ones I gravitated to, and I was so honored to be able to read with you all. It was such a joy. Ada Limon is the author of 5 books of poetry. She's, I don't want to list everything, but she's dope, and she currently lives in Lexington, Kentucky. You gotta Google her. She's got Bright Dead Things is one of her books that I love. The Carrying. So please join me in welcoming. I know that, Ada, you could be anywhere else not doing this. You could be resting and just, living life. But I'm so grateful that you are joining us tonight. So please join me in welcoming to the virtual stage, Ada Limon.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here. Aja knows that I've been struggling with sort of migraines for the last couple of weeks, and I'm covered in ice packs, but they actually seem to be working. So I'm feeling better. I think you guys are healing me. I think this is doing its work. So thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I wanted to thank Aja, of course, for this, and all of the poets that are here that are heroes and goddesses to me. And I also just want to shout out to both my brothers who are in education. And I know that right now so many teachers are trying to move classes and try to teach folks that sometimes don't even have a laptop or don't even have internet service, and then trying to move things online in a way that seems fair and a way that's, gives kids actual access to something good. And I also want to give a shout out to all my cousins who are in the healthcare industry, who are on the front lines and are in the hospitals every day and have to, isolate from their families. So I'm thinking about them. I think this is a time when I, was hoping, like many people, that this would be a time to come together, and instead it seemed again that the divisiveness and the division of our country became more and more apparent. And so I'm going to read 2 poems, and this is the first one. A new national anthem. The truth is, I never cared for the national anthem. If you think about it, it's not a good song. It's too high for most of us with the rocket's red glare. And then there are the bombs. Always, always, there is war and bombs. Once I sang it at homecoming and threw even the tenacious high school band off key. But the song didn't mean anything, just a call to the field, something to get through before the pummeling of youth. And what of the stanzas we never sing? The third that mentions no refuge could save the hireling and the slave. Perhaps the truth is every song of this country has an unsung third stanza. Something brutal snaking underneath as we absent-mindedly sing the high notes with a beer sloshing in the stands, hoping our team wins. Don't get me wrong. I do like the flag, how it undulates in the wind like water, elemental, and best when it's humbled, brought to its knees, clung to by someone who has lost everything, when it's not a weapon, when it flickers, when it folds up so perfectly you can keep it until it's needed, until you can love it again, until the song in your mouth feels like sustenance, a song where the notes are sung by even the ageless woods, the short grass plains, the Red River Gorge, the fistful of land left unpoisoned, the song that's our birthright, that's sung in silence when it's too hard not to go on, that sounds like someone's rough fingers weaving into another's, that sounds like a match being lit in an endless cave, the song that says my bones are your bones and your bones are my bones, and isn't that enough? Thank you. Thank you, loves. I wanted to read one more poem. It's a short poem. I always think of this as an apocalyptic love poem, and I think it's hopeful. The conditional. Say tomorrow doesn't come. Say the moon becomes an icy pit. Say the sweet gum tree is petrified. Say the sun's a foul black tire fire. Say the owl's eyes are pinpricks. Say the raccoon's a hot tar stain. Say the shirt's plastic ditch litter. Say the kitchen's a cow's corpse. Say we never get to see it. Bright future, stuck like a bum star, never coming close, never dazzling. Say we never meet her, never him. Say we spend our last moments staring at each other, hands knotted together, clutching the dog, watching the sky burn. Say it doesn't matter. Say that would be enough. Say you'd still want this. Us, alive, right here, feeling lucky. Thank you. Thank you, Aja.
You could do one more if you want. I'm just saying.
No, I know we're over time. I'm good. I love you guys.
Thank you so much.
I'm ready to listen.
Okay, thank you so much. That was amazing. Appreciate it. And everybody, please go get her books. That she was doing a little teaser, so then you got to go fetch more. Okay. The next poet, I am so honored and grateful to have a fellow Haymarket poet and someone who just is doing dope work and incredible writer and incredible thinker and organizer. So join me in welcoming Jose Olivares. He's the son of Mexican immigrants. His debut book of poems, Citizen Illegal, right here, was a finalist for the Penn John Stein Award and winner of 2018 Chicago Review of Books of Poetry Prize. There's a bunch more I could say. He also has an anthology that he worked with Willie Perdomo and some other people, breakbeat poets. You could talk more about that, but thank you. Join me in welcoming Jose.
Thank you, everybody. I want to say thank you to Aja. It's so good to see both you and Ada back on stage together. Also want to shout out all the workers, of course. Happy May Day. I'm going to start with this poem. This poem is called No Vaporu. It's a poem I wrote because I've been reading books for a long time, and I never saw literature mention Vaporu. And Vaporu was one of the medicines that was like our go-to when we were kids. So this is called No Vaporu. Vaporu is pronounced Vaporu, like loud or chew. The label for Vaporu says it's for cough suppression, but in my house, Vaporu is for headaches, sore muscles, nightmares, and everything else. Put some Vaporu on my dad's diabetic toes, and watch the sugar evaporate. Miss a day of church? Put some Vaporu on your forehead and watch forgiveness flush your cheeks. Put some Vaporu on our bank account and watch the bill collector stop calling. When I forget a word in Spanish, I take a teaspoon of Vaporu under the tongue. So that's that poem. I'll read one more poem. And if you don't know what Vaporu is, you can ask somebody.
I wanted more. I definitely want it.
Thank you. This poem is called Mexican Heaven, and it's in a number of parts. 1, all of the Mexicans sneak into heaven. St. Peter has their name on the list, but none of the Mexicans have trusted a list since Ronald Reagan was president. 2, St. Peter is a Mexican named Pedro, but he's not a saint. Pedro waits at the gate with a shot of tequila to welcome all the Mexicans to heaven, but he gets drunk and forgets about the list. All the Mexicans walk into heaven, even our no good cousins who only go to church for baptisms and funerals. 3, it turns out God is one of those religious Mexicans who doesn't drink or smoke weed, so all the Mexicans in heaven party in the basement while God reads the Bible and thumbs a rosary. God threatens to kick all the Mexicans out of heaven si no paran con las pendejadas. So the Mexicans drink more discreetly. They smoke outside where God won't smell the weed. God pretends the Mexicans are reformed. Hallelujah. This cycle repeats once a month. Amen. 4, Jesus has a tattoo of La Virgen de Guadalupe covering his back. It turns out he's your cousin Jesus from the block. It turns out he gets reincarnated every day and no one on earth cares all that much. 5, all the Mexican women refuse to cook or clean or raise the kids or pay bills or make the bed or drive you to work or do anything except watch their novelas. So heaven is gross. The rats are fat as roosters and the men die of starvation. 6, there are white people in heaven too. They build condos across the street and ask the Mexicans to speak English. I'm just kidding. There are no white people in heaven. 7, tamales, tacos, tostadas, tortas, pozole, sopes, huaraches, menudo, horchata, jamaica, limonada, agua. 8, St. Peter lets Mexicans into heaven, but only to work in the kitchens. A Mexican dishwasher polishes the crystal, smells the meals, and hears the music. They dream of another heaven, one they might be allowed in if only they work hard enough. Thank you.
That may be my absolute favorite poem.
I'm so glad you read that, Jose.
Yeah, I got so much joy from listening to all your poems, and Jose, that was amazing. But Mark, is that I've been watching her reactions.
Yes.
And I've been so enjoying, what's your name?
Lisa.
Lisa.
Thank you for your energy.
The joy.
No, thank you, Uba. No, thank you. Oh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. Thank you, Aja. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, thank you, guys. I'm good. Okay. Okay. So the next thing we're going to share with people is we won't take too much time, but we wanted to share some homemade remedies. I know this is a really hard time for everyone, but I just want to say thank you for people just holding it together through all of this. Sorry, I'm a sucker. So we want to always, we do in the middle, we give homemade remedies to people. And the first one that we wanted to share, both of them today are from Layla Henderson from South Florida. She shared medicinal honey. And we want people to just be aware that the illness is affecting, obviously we've been told we've been told all sorts of things that aren't accurate or fully transparent. But the biggest thing that we know to be true is that we need to be empowering and strengthening our immune systems. So whatever you are eating or indulging on that's too sweet or unhealthy for you, that you know is unhealthy, you shouldn't be taking, don't eat it now. Don't even enjoy it. Alcohol, all those things, please avoid them because they weaken your immune system. And we also know that a lot of people are being told, oh, you don't go to the hospital unless you can't breathe, et cetera. It's been said and shared by nurses that the best thing to do specifically for Black people and people of color is to make sure that you're actually being active and exercising and working out your lungs, and doing and taking and absorbing medicine that is helping with respiratory issues. So ginger and garlic, things like this is really important. There's an old folk remedy where we put onions on your chest. Just think of all these traditions. So medicinal honey, 3 knobs of ginger, 3 pieces of turmeric, 6 garlic cloves, 2 tablespoons of black seed oil. If you can get some, you can find it online. You can find it at your local store. You can also find it at the Rastas, vegetarian or veggie store. They know where to get some black seed oil. Believe that if you can. If not, you do without it. Raw honey. And you peel and chop your garlic, peel lightly, rinse, chop your ginger and turmeric, add these ingredients into a blender or, stomp them out in your bowl if you need to. And you can add a tablespoon of water or so to give it a smoother consistency. Strain this mixture and pour it into a mason jar or a cup or a bottle, whatever you have that can hold it. Then fill the mason jar up with the honey, add your black seed oil and stir, and then store it in the fridge. And you can use this honey for your teas. Really good teas right now is hawthorn berry tea is really good. Obviously mint tea. And then usually you can put about a tablespoon or more, depending on how severe your symptoms are. One other remedy we're going to share is hot cider. So get all these fresh ingredients if you can. 1/2 cup peeled and diced ginger, 1/2 cup peeled and I already said that, 1/2 cup peeled diced ginger, 1/2 cup chopped white onion, a 1/4 cup chopped ginger. She said that twice. Okay. 2 chopped jalapeno peppers, zest juice or 2 lemons, and then apple cider vinegar and raw honey. So you add the ginger, the onion, the garlic, the jalapenos, the lemon zest, and juice into a quart-sized jar or container with a lid. Pack the ingredients down lightly and pour a generous amount of apple cider vinegar over the ingredients in your jar. Tightly cover your jar or container and place it in a dark room temperature cabinet for 2 to 4 weeks if you have that time. When the cider is ready, shake it very well and strain it, and then add your honey to taste if you want. Place it in the fridge. This can last up to a year. So this is 2 remedies sent by Layla. Just know that apple cider vinegar is really good for you. If you put a little bit in your water daily, it helps alkalize the body. Even if you can't do all this, just try to do that. Or lemons is really good in that way too. Any other remedies that folks want to share right now before we move on to the next poet? I know a few folks had some.
The only remedy that I have, but I think it's very true, and I think we don't use it enough, is ice. And we always have it, but I think that for those of us who, especially if stress is bringing on any kind of chronic pain, I think that, and I know that for us here, a lot of our physical therapy places are shut down. So if you can't get your regular physical therapy, so just remember that you can ice all of your sore parts, and that it really does work, and it brings down inflammation, especially for those of us that are living with chronic illnesses.
Thank you so much, Ada. Lots of water, says Tahimba, even though you could have spoke. Anyone else? We will be putting out a collection of all these remedies and sharing them with you, and they'll be on social media, on the website, and all this stuff. But just letting you know, moringa, we talked about in the last show, sea moss, if you can get some, black seed oil, the raw honeys, propolis is really good. That's from the bee honey. You can get that at, well, we striking today. So there's a lot of stuff you can't get right now at this store. So we're not going there. But support your local health food stores and support the mom and pop indie shops that have been selling this stuff and trying to nurture and teach us proper health care during long before this moment, but definitely during this moment. So that's what we have so far. We good? Whew, okay. And we're going to take a deep breath because I know I need it. The next poet I have known for so long. It is a wild, just a wild life to be able to invite someone you've known so long and to see grow up. I grew up with an organization called Urban Word NYC, and it was a bunch of young poets who were mentored by incredible people and activists, and we all watched each other do open mics and slams and be a part of such an incredible community, grassroots community. And Denise is one of those poets who just has taught me so much from a distance. I've watched a lot of the work that she does, and I've been inspired. She's a poet, performer, and educator from New York City. She's a Canto Mundo fellow. She's received so many awards and residencies, and more importantly, she just speaks truth and love. So I'm so grateful to have her here. So join me in welcoming to the virtual stage, Denise Froman.
Hello, hello. Peace. Thank you so much, Aja. Thank you for gathering us in this way, and all the poets who've shared their words and their heart. I am so full right now. A big shout out, obviously, to the frontline workers, our essential workers, those who day in and day out are doing the invisible labor to keep our communities afloat. Those who are most at risk, sadly, oftentimes have the least protections. And I feel like that's what this day is calling attention to. So this first poem is dedicated to street vendors who cannot work right now. Many people can't work, but street vendors have very little protections. This is for the domestic workers, for the nannies, and really for anybody who works with their hands. A queer girl's ode to the Piragüero. Oh, Piragüero, my first lover, the only man I ever wanted anything from. I sprinted half blocks for you, got off the bus 2 stops early, took the long way home just to see your rainbow umbrella. Oh, Piragüero, candy cool syrup, God. Boricua, Batmobile, wooden cart pushing, bobsled, papi. When the viejitas asked for the 10th time whether I got un novio, the closest name on my tongue was you. Who else made me break my neck in 2? Who else gave me so much for $1? Who raised hell when they nicknamed your island delicacy snow cone, or worse, shaved ice? I trusted you, the hallelujah work of your bare hands, the dirty white kitchen towel you laid over a fat block of ice, and never once did I ask questions. And when they pushed you off 9th Ave, when you packed up on 96, I only saw you after ball games on 131st and 5th, when the hipsters threw ice in paper cups, added nutmeg and real ingredients like mint leaves, called this an upscale makeover for a poor man's treat. I wanted to shout out, no, leave my man alone. Tell me, who else could turn a blue shopping cart into a 57 Chevy, or a mom and pop shop, maybe the elotero on El Centro, the chudo ladies by the A train, maybe my mama, once the nanny, who sewed curtains for a couple upstairs, made an office out of her hands. Like my pops, who cut his saxophone until the velvet flesh of night rearranged the altitude of a palladium dance floor. And then a plump wad of cash a worn rubber band, a 401k shoebox, which is to say, praise everything we build under the table. The underworld of workers, wielders, America's thumping baseline, the chorus of a country where 2 for 1 is the best hook to every good song I know. Like the way you turn my tongue into a red carpet, like the first woman I ever loved. Oh, Piragüero, you winter my whole mouth. You conductor of cool. You're the only one I know, the only one who can govern the thick heat like a DJ scratching a glacier. You make the whole city rock. Thank you. Thank you so much. This next poem is, I wrote this when I was in LA at the In-N-Out for the first time in my life. And I thought I saw somebody who's famous going through the drive-thru, and it made me think about this word famous. First of all, my mind was blown at In-N-Out. I mean, really incredible, okay? That so much so that I wrote this poem. But really what this is orbiting is sort of thinking through what we're told is important, and this idea that we're supposed to seek external validation to be full. So I was thinking, what does that mean in my life? What does that look like in my life? Everybody's famous in LA. Which reminds me that I just bought fancy sheets for the first time in my adult life, which means I'm fancy too now, which is not what my 3-year-old nephew would say, but absolutely how I felt when he said, Didi, you're my best friend, right? And it's like that. The first time I wore a black suit that hugged my shoulders and not my hips, the sidewalk lit up in a constellation of days-old gum, which is so New York. So I slow danced along the spectacle of 9th Avenue and remembered that I have jumped on more than one occasion at the sight of my own decadence, until a vecina who knew me back when I rocked bangs and an awkward long ponytail asked what I'm up to these days. And I couldn't tell her the truth. So I said, I write poems. Instead of my therapist asked if I know what PTSD is. The best front row seats I have are the ones to my own funeral, which feels weird to say because I dream I died and no one showed up. Nobody, except maybe for Stan, yes, Stan, who fixed my flat tire with a hot patch this morning and called himself king. The world is full of VIPs who make minimum wage. I hope I'm still fancy, though I'm not convinced. Here I am, sitting outside the In-N-Out, wanting to high-five the weather that pours out of me, but I don't know how. The only time I won anything was the spring of '96. Remember Lucky? He bet $5 that you could beat all the sticky-fingered boys in a game of 21, and when you won, you ran home with the ball tucked under your arm like it was a winning lottery ticket. And your mother said, you better not dribble in the house. And don't you dare touch the walls with your dirty fingers. Legendary. Or the time you waited 2 hours outside the Reebok to take a picture with Magic Johnson. He slapped your hand. You wrapped it in plastic that night because it was going to be worth bazillions one day. Your mother ripped it off because saran wrap is expensive and food stamps don't pay for regular people's shit. When you're older, she'll remind you that her house isn't a hotel. So you better stay a little while longer, coño. And speaking of hotels, I'm at a fancy, no, really, 5-star hotel, lounging on Egyptian cotton sheets when the wireless network says there has been an error processing your request. And I remember how I escaped the violence. This is how death makes a name for itself. What does not kill me only makes me want to die a little less. I'm trying to stay alive here. I'm trying to change my life. Where do I sign up? I'm trying to find the courage to say, no, you can't come in. I'll poke holes through the night. Baby, I'm a star.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Denise. Okay. Moving on to.
Thank you, Denise.
Yes, thank you so much. Tahimba Jess. is an author of 2 books of poetry, Lead Belly, and I want to say Olio, right? Did I say that right? Tahimba?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. It won, well, yeah, won the just the casual 2017 Pulitzer Prize. Just nothing big here. But I won't go into all the other things. He's just incredible.
A casual Pulitzer.
He's an incredible person. I'm grateful for just his clarity and vision through this moment, this political moment, and some of the things that he's been able to share and speak to. And thanks for showing up to my poetry reading that one time in Chicago. Really appreciated that.
Man.
Give it up. Tahimba Jess.
Thank you, Aja. It's great to be here. Man, so many fantastic voices, so much fantastic poetry here and tonight. Glad to be here in this moment with you. So I'm just gonna hit it with this right quick. This poem is in the spirit of the Black Lives Matter movement, and with a slight addendum in that there's some names mentioned: Mashouk John, Fazal Wahad, Muhammad Yas Khan, and Tariq Aziz are children that were murdered by United States drone attacks in Yemen and Pakistan. All others were murdered by United States police officers. The name of this poem is Against Silence. My name is Tahimba Jess. I am a Black poet. I have a silence to be rightened. I have a silence after each shooting. I remain a nation unsilenced. I am a poet murdering silence. My name is Eric. My name is Belle. My name is Eleanor. My name is Nation. My rights fit any murder description. My remains remained on the asphalt for 4 hours while the crowd screamed about my rights. Then the silence as I was shoved into an SUV and carted to the morgue. My name is poetic. Trayvon, Diallo, Usman, sing my Blackness in the headlines. My name once held all possibilities, but now flies out from the mouth hauling anger and sorrow. I have a right to be angry. I have a morgue inside my silence. I have an arm against my throat and a bullet in my head. I have a wedding to go to, a graduation to walk, a little brother to chill with, and now I'm a face on a placard in a sea of anger, a newspaper article. I'm a question passed from one generation to the next, a lesson in fear, and all I really want is to go home. My name is murdered. My name is a silent snapshot on the funeral program. The officer remained silent. He was programmed by a nation's anger, a moaning silence born in the chokehold of a slave ship. Ask if he is a drone cruising the streets of the nation, programmed to murder Black. Ask a drone for the poetry of the names of the rightless it has murdered. Ask the silence about your rights. My name is Pearlie Golden. My name is Tariq Aziz. My name is Kayla Moore. My name is Ayanna Stanley Jones. My name is Fazal Wahad. My name is a nation of funerals. The silence after my name is murdered by the sound of the next. My name is Michael Brown. My name is Kamani Gray, Kendrick McDade, Mashouk John, Muhammad Yas Khan. The angry drone spotted me while I was coming home from the store, on the way to work, on the way to a wedding, walking down the street. The drone looked down at me from its great height and power, and the sky was full of its murder. My murder is a right this nation angers for. My name is a poem. My name is not silence. I am a Black poem written into the silence left behind. Thank you. This next poem, you know what? I think I want to read one for Florida because you know what, Aja, you out there in Florida, and
Crazy Florida.
Yeah, Florida. You know, but Florida was really the site of was really the most successful
That's true.
slave rebellion.
The Maroons and all that.
Maroons in the state of Florida that fled from South Carolina through what would become Georgia and would end up in Florida. So, you know, and they had a community there, really a nation there that endured for over 100 years. We don't talk about that.
No.
But we're here to talk about that tonight. So this is called Maroons in America. And the epigraph comes from a book by Joshua R. Giddings entitled The Exiles of Florida. And the epigraph runs, all right, there you go. Here's Brother Giddings. Torn from their native land, their friends and homes, they were sold in the markets of Carolina and Georgia. Feeling the hand of oppression bearing heavily upon them, they fled to Florida. They weren't headed north to freedom. They fled away from the North Star, turned their back on Canada, put their feet to freedom by fleeing further south to Florida. Ran to where gator and python roamed free in the mosquito swarm of Suwannee. They slipped out deep after sunset, shadow to shadow, shoulder to shoulder, stealthing southward, stealing themselves, stealing their souls to run steel through any slave catcher who dared try stealing them back north. They billeted in swamp mud, sawgrass, and cypress. They waded through waves of water lily and duckweed. They thinned themselves in thickets and thornbush, hiding their young from thieves of black skin marauding under moonlight and cloud cover. Many once knew another shore, an ocean away, whose language, songs, stories were outlawed on plantation ground. In swampland, they raised flags of their native tongues above whisper smoke into billowing bonfires of chant, drum, and chatter. They remembered themselves with their own words, bleeding into English, bonding into Spanish, singing in Creek and Creole. With their sweat forging farms in unforgiving heat, never forgetting scars of the lash, fighting battle after battle for generations. Creeks called them Seminole when they bonded with renegade Creeks. Spaniards called them Cimarrones, runaways, escapees from Carolina plantation death prisons. English simply called them Maroons, flattening the Spanish to make them seem alone, abandoned, adrift. But they were bonded, side by side, black and red in a blood-red hue, maroon, sovereignty soldiers, black refugees, self-abolitionists, fighting through America's history, marooned in a land they made their own, acre after acre, plot after plot, war after war, life after life. They fought only for America to let them be marooned, left alone in their own unchained, singing, worthy blood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's the truth right there.
Awesome.
The next poet I want to help bring to the virtual stage. I remember seeing Stacey Ann for the first time at the Culture Project, I believe, and being blown away by, I think it was a one-woman show we saw, and then obviously watching her on Deaf Poetry and all the incredible work she's done. She's also a fellow Haymarket poet, so please go support her book. Stacey Ann Chin is a spoken word poet, performing artist, LGBTQ rights, political activist, an incredible mother. There's so many awards and things I can share, but this is one of those people that is a fire spitter poet. So I want you to join me in welcoming to the virtual stage, Stacey Ann Chin.
Mad love. Thank you for having me. And of course, this damn thing has been steady all night, but now when I need it, it's moving. So I'm going to take a risk here. My daughter's favorite phrase is, I'm going to take a risk. So I'm going to take a risk and read a poem that is fresh off the ink. I haven't named it yet, but for now we'll call it This Moment. And I mean, just as a preface, in 1918, the bigots belled the H1N1 virus the Spanish flu. Not because it started in Spain, or because it had anything to do with Spain, except that while Europe and America was hiding the effects of the virus from the rest of the world because of the war that they were entrenched in, Spain was actually accurately reporting. And so as a result of that, as a backlash against Spain, people started calling it the Spanish flu, and that's how we call it, the Spanish flu. And here now, these contemporary xenophobes are trying to tag this new coronavirus the Chinese virus. And so when people resist it, this thing has become simply the coronavirus. And who knows what eventual name will stick after the thick cloud of death has passed. I hear people say all the time, we are all in this together. And so that's kind of a backdrop to what this is. We're all in this together, people say. White people, rich people, celebrities say we're all in it together, and the phrase burrows unpleasant under my skin. Every time I hear some motherfucker say we're all in this together, I have to rethink this shit, question this shit. In this moment, I imagine every brain is trying to make sense of the moment. Every heart struggling to steady itself, every body redrawing property lines of autonomy while carving connections of community to families you can't see and friends you can't hold close in this moment, inside or many apartments behind these multifarious walls. Those of us steeped in partial privilege. Most of what we seemed focused on before this moment seems superfluous, like how to beat morning traffic on Atlantic, how to buy a bigger, better, newer car, how to procure a plethora of likes on social media so strangers can virtually wave to you on a digital bar. Now, all of us are trapped inside the matrix, far away from the prying eyes of the fleshy public, sequestered at home, real life as we know it, gone. Only the digital remains. The deaths tick upwards on our screen, the not real people dying, the not real statistics threatening our own demise, making us examine every cough, every sniffle, a confirmation that we done caught the damn corona. In this moment, if you live with somebody, roommate or kin, if you have to make a decision to be all in with them, you have to coexist with them, or you have to exist alone in your room in silence. Human connection has become a fucking emotional triathlon. Number one, you have to remain cognizant of your own desire. You have to stay connected to those sharing your space. And 3, you have to trace the forgotten route from your faraway heart to those who long ago raised you or praised you, those who grazed alongside you as children before you grew into who you are now. To thwart your own expiration in this moment, you must now negotiate all your relationships from inside of an isolated matrix. You have to remove yourself from your siblings and your parents and your mentors and your college mates and your old lovers and your old classmates and your exes and your co-workers. You have to stay away from your children who do not normally reside with you. So yes, in some way, we are all fucking in this together. But in this moment, if you are Black, the stakes become a little bit higher. if you are Latinx, if you are ill with any underlying condition, if you are an immigrant, if you are undocumented, if you are working inside the working class, if you are likely to live in a densely populated area with less room to create distance socially or economically, and if you happen to choose to love a family inside a zip code with an overflow of melanin, chances are you are also at risk for fiscal segregation, which means you probably won't have health insurance or savings. Not because you haven't tried to fucking save, but because the rent you pay is proportionately higher than the mortgage your landlord pays. And because processed food costs so much more than fresh, so much less than fresh in Black and brown neighborhoods. And if you travel longer for fruit, if you work longer hours for less, if you are poor and you are rural, if you are light years away from a hospital, it means you can't get sick, because how would you get there to the hospital? How would you get there? Who would look after your kids while you're joyriding in a fucking ambulance that's going to cost you $1,000 to come pick you up in the fucking first place? Which means in this moment, staying home is the safest bet for everyone except for you with your family and your friends. But for you in the working class, in the metropolis, it's a catch-22, because you have to go outside every day because you deliver essential supplies for a living. You pick up sick people in an ambulance. You mop floors in hospitals. You drive a New York City bus. You cash out paying customers in a busy city supermarket. You are a nurse intubating coronavirus patients all day. So every day you open doors that hundreds have opened, touched surfaces that dozens have sneezed on. You reach for door handles, push elevator buttons, wipe cashier counters. You do your job knowing this virus lurks on every seat on the fucking subway. At any moment, it could catch you, latch itself onto you, follow you home to your healthy 5-year-old daughter who will eventually die from a disease they tell us only kills old people and sick people, as if it's acceptable to lose elders. Collateral damage is what is intimated, as if losing our grandmothers is not akin to losing entire libraries of history in one breath. This moment may be too big for any one heart to hold it. In this moment, those of us who are dispossessed might well have to join forces and blow a fucking blowtorch to the asses of those who are yet not aware of their own oppression. This moment is asking you to delete the past, designed to make drones of us, to dispense with what has served the 1% wealthy minority. It's time to abolish the foolish rule of the political few. This revolution is long, long, long overdue. It's time to usher in a future that better serves our children. Now that our leaders have taken to suggesting we ingest disinfectant by vein, fuck the crack they fed us. Fuck cocaine. This fool is purporting we radiate our insides with UV light because they couldn't quite kill us with all they have already done to us. They are now suggesting from official podiums that we do it for them with hydroxychloroquine, as the gaze of the world is turned towards one shared goal. The coals of change burn red hot, and we, its citizens, are boiling. There couldn't be a better time to grab the moment by its throat, suffocate that motherfucker, and create an equitable system. This could be the moment to change the inhumane working hours the poorest among us have been keeping, to fix the healthcare system that has shown itself inadequate to care for anyone but the white-collar pimps and hustlers exploiting. This moment could be the moment we fix the housing crisis. Everything has already changed. Why wouldn't we fucking carpe diem for the nurses who caring for 14 elderly patients in a nursing home every night and still unable to afford medication? Why wouldn't we demand change for the media that consistently reports what bolsters ratings rather than what puts power in the hands of the people? This moment is at a boiling point, and we, the citizens of the world, are blistered from the heat of it. We have become crabs caught in a cruel pace of life that is, in this moment, killing us. In our absence, The earth has begun to move closer to its own repair. In our absence, the earth has begun to move closer to its own repair. It would behoove us to contemplate a shift towards a preservation of the air, the water, the plants that keep us alive on this rock. We need to take stock of what's required for the survival of our ecosystem. What would it take for us to care for every living being breathing on this planet? What could life look like if that were a priority? What could we gain if we shifted away from greed, from the speed of what corporations dictate? If we castigated the dicks who've been in charge forever, we could charge forward. We could do more than just read the dire writing on these walls, clearly tumbling upon us. In this moment, I am begging you. The planet is begging you. This moment is begging us to reach for the better part of being human. In this insulated, isolated moment, let us fling open these doors with a desire to be better than we have ever been before. When we emerge from this lockdown, it is time to demand more of ourselves, more of each other. It's time to ensure the next pandemic, be it 10 or 50 or 75 years from now, does not again find us where it left us an entire century ago, trapped in an oppressive cycle, killing each other by reliving old history, an old history that keeps repeating itself, an old history that keeps repeating itself, an old history that keeps repeating itself over and over and over again.
Thank you so much, Stacey Ann. Thank you. Folks, I know we're running down to the time, so I want to thank everyone for staying with us and bearing with us. What's beautiful is that we'll be able to also show all the recordings will be up and live, or not live, but be up and saved on the website, on my website, www.ajamonet.com, on Haymarket's YouTube. And I've been looking forward to this moment the entire week, the entire past. I mean, we were supposed to have Martine here in South Florida in April with Mark, and unfortunately this all took place. So I know Poetry for the People, shout out to Poetry for the People. Everybody is watching right now with so much hope and admiration. Shout out to the Dream Defenders. We wrote our whole basic vision for South Florida and the state of Florida based off of your poem, Imagine the Angels of Bread, when we imagined what the year could look like with the Freedom Papers. So Dream Defenders was able to use that poem as an actual organizing tool. So I want to just share that and stress the importance of poetry and not just being a part of the accessory or the decoration to our movements, but being integral in the strategy and how we plan the visions that we want to see and what we want to fight for in this current moment. I want to thank, and please join me in welcoming to the virtual stage, a fellow East New York, Brooklyn poet. Now he's in Massachusetts, but we ain't gonna talk about that. Please join me. I'm in South Florida, so it is what it is. Please join me welcoming Martín Espada.
Buenas noches. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Aja. Thank you, Haymarket Books. Thank you, all the poets tonight. I'm going to read 3 poems. I'm going to begin with a poem called Alabanza. It's a 9/11 poem. It's a 9/11 poem with a twist. The focus is on the food service workers who were killed that day. Many of them immigrant, many of them undocumented, invisible in life and even more invisible in death. Today, I look at the same poem and I see the essential workers risking everything. I see the workers who have lost their jobs. I see the workers who have lost their lives. Many immigrant, many undocumented, invisible in life, invisible in death. The word alabanza means praise in Spanish. The full title of this poem is Alabanza in Praise of Local 100. For the 43 members of hotel employees and restaurant employees, Local 100, working at the Windows on the World restaurant who lost their lives in the attack on the World Trade Center. Alabanza. Praise the cook with a shaven head and a tattoo on his shoulder that said, Oye, a blue-eyed Puerto Rican with people from Fajardo, the harbor of pirates centuries ago. Praise the lighthouse in Fajardo, candle glimmering white to worship the dark saint of the sea, Alabanza. Praise the cook's yellow pirate's cap, worn in the name of Roberto Clemente, his plane that flamed into the ocean loaded with cans for Nicaragua, for all the mouths chewing the ash of earthquakes, Alabanza. Praise the kitchen radio, dial clicked even before the dial on the oven, so that music and Spanish rose before bread. Praise the bread, alabanza. Praise Manhattan from 107 flights up, like Atlantis glimpsed through the windows of an ancient aquarium. Praise the great windows where immigrants from the kitchen could squint and almost see their world. Hear the chant of nations. Ecuador, Mexico, República Dominicana, Haiti, Yemen, Ghana, Bangladesh, alabanza. Praise the kitchen in the morning where the gas burned blue on every stove and exhaust fans fired their diminutive propellers, hands cracked eggs with quick thumbs or sliced open cartons to build an altar of cans, alabanza. Praise the busboy's music, the chime of his dishes and silverware in the tub, alabanza. Praise the dish dog, the dishwasher who worked that morning because another dishwasher could not stop coughing, or because he needed overtime to pile the sacks of rice and beans for a family floating away on some Caribbean island plagued by frogs, alabanza. Praise the waitress who heard the radio in the kitchen and sang to herself about a man gone, alabanza. After the thunder, wilder than thunder. After the shudder deep in the glass of the great windows. After the radio stopped singing like a tree full of terrified frogs. After night burst the dam of day and flooded the kitchen. For a time, the stoves glowed in darkness like the lighthouse in Fajardo, like a cook's soul. Soul, I say. Even if the dead cannot tell us about the bristles of God's beard, because God has no face. Soul, I say, to name the smoke beings flung in constellations across the night sky of this city and cities to come. Alabanza, I say, even if God has no face. Alabanza. When the war began, from Manhattan and Kabul, 2 constellations of smoke rose and drifted to each other, mingling in icy air, and one said with an Afghan tongue, "Teach me to dance. We have no music here." And the other said with a Spanish tongue, "I will teach you. Music is all we have."
My goodness, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Second poem. Allegedly in response to the pandemic, Donald Trump has closed the border. And that makes me think of a photograph. And many of you have seen this photograph. 2 Salvadoran migrants, father and daughter, who drowned crossing the Rio Grande. They came to be known as Oscar and Valeria. And you may know about the I'm 1015 Border Patrol Facebook group, where some said that photo was faked. as in fake news. And they used a common Border Patrol term for drowned migrants that gives my next poem its name: floaters. Epigraph. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and ask, have y'all ever seen floaters this clean? I'm not trying to be an ass, but I have never seen floaters like this. Could this be another edited photo? We've all seen the Dems and liberal parties do some pretty sick things. Anonymous post, I'm 1015 Border Patrol Facebook group. Like a beer bottle thrown into the river by a boy too drunk to cry. Like the shard of a styrofoam cup drained of coffee brown as the river. Like the plank of a fishing boat broken in half by the river, the dead float. And the dead have a name. Floaters, say the men of the Border Patrol, keeping watch all night by the river, hearts pumping coffee as they say the word floaters, soft as a bubble, hard as a shoe, as it nudges the body to see if it breathes, to see if it moans, to see if it sits up and speaks. And the dead have names. A feast day parade of names, names that dress all in red, names that twirl skirts, names that blow whistles, names that shake rattles, names that sing in praise of the saints. Say, Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez. Say, Angie Valeria Martinez Avalos. See how they rise off the tongue, the calling of bird to bird somewhere in the trees above our heads, trilling in the dark heart of the leaves. Say what we know of them. Now they are dead. Oscar slapped dough for pizza with oven blistered fingers. Daughter Valeria sang, banging a toy guitar. He slipped free of the apron he wore in the blast of the oven, sold the motorcycle he would kick till it sputtered to life, counted off pesos for the journey across the river, and the last of his 25 years, and the last of her 23 months. There is another name that beats its wings in the heart of the trees. Say, Tanya Vanessa Avalos, Oscar's wife and Valeria's mother, the witness stumbling along the river. Now their names rise off her tongue. Say Oscar y Valeria. He swam from Matamoros across to Brownsville. The girl slung around his neck, stood her in the weeds on the Texas side of the river, swore to return with her mother in hand, turning his back as fathers do who later say, I turned around and she was gone. In the time it takes for a bird to hop from branch to branch, Valeria jumped in the river after her father. Maybe he called out her name as he swept her up from the river. Maybe the river drowned out his voice as the water swept him away. Tanya called out the names of the saints, but the saints drowsed in the stupor of birds in the dark, their cages covered with blankets. The men on patrol would never hear their pleas for asylum, watching for floaters, hearts pumping coffee all night on the Texas side of the river. No one, they say, had ever seen floaters so clean. Oscar's black shirt yanked up to the armpit, Valeria's arms slung around her father's neck, even after the light left her eyes, both face down in the weeds back on the Mexican side of the river. Another edited photo. See how her head disappears in his shirt, the waterlogged diaper bunched in her pants, the blue of the blue cans. The radio warned us about the crisis actors we see at one school shooting after another. The man called Oscar will breathe, sit up, speak, tug the black shirt over his head, shower off the mud, and shake hands with the photographer. Yet, The floaters did not float down the Rio Grande like Olympians showing off the backstroke, nor did their souls float up to Dallas, land of rumored jobs and a president shot in the head as he waved from his motorcade. No, bubbles rose from their breath in the mud, light as the iridescent circles of soap that would fascinate a 2-year-old. And the dead still have names. Names that sing in praise of the saints, names that flower in blossoms of white, a cortege of names dressed all in black, trailing the coffins to the cemetery. Carve their names in headlines and gravestones they would never know in the kitchens of this cacophonous world. Enter their names in the book of names. Say Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez. Say Angie Valeria Martinez Avalos. Bury them in a corner of the cemetery named for the sainted Archbishop of the Poor, shot in the heart saying mass, bullets bought by the taxes I paid when I worked as a bouncer and fractured my hand 40 years ago, and bumper stickers read, El Salvador is Spanish for Vietnam. When the last bubble of breath escapes the body, may the men who speak of floaters, who have never seen floaters this clean, float through the clouds to the heavens, where they paddle the air as they wait for the saint who flips through the keys on his ring like a drowsy janitor, till he fingers the key that turns the lock and shuts the gate on their babble-tongued faces, and they plunge back to earth, a shower of hailstones pelting the river, the Mexican side of the river. Third and last poem. At least 63,000 people have now died in the United States from COVID-19, surpassing a total American military dead in Vietnam. But Donald Trump says he's proud of the job he's done. His negligence, his cruelty, his racism, his refusal to apologize or take responsibility, his interest in nothing but profit and power are very familiar to the people of Puerto Rico. Donald Trump is now doing to the mainland United States exactly what he did to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. At least 3,000 people died on that small island. My father, Frank Espada, was born in a mountain town called Utuado, devastated. I wrote a letter to my father in the fall of 2017, yet my father died 3 years earlier. This poem evolved from the practice of talking to my father's ashes in a box. My father, Frank Espada, was an organizer and a hellraiser. On May Day, let us not forget the organizers. Let us not forget the hellraisers. Let us not forget the people they fought to liberate, the ones we still fight to liberate. This poem is called Letter to My Father, October 2017. You once said, my reward for this life will be 1,000 pounds of dirt shoveled in my face. You were wrong. You are 7 pounds of ashes in a box, a Puerto Rican flag wrapped around you next to a red brick from the house in Utuado where you were born, all crammed together on my bookshelf. You taught me there is no God, no life after this life, so I know you're not watching me type this letter over my shoulder. When I was a boy, you were God. I watched from the 7th floor of the projects as you walked down into the street to stop a public execution. A big man caught a small man stealing his car, and everyone in Brooklyn heard the car alarm wail of the condemned. He's killing me! At a word from you, the executioner's hand slipped from the hair of the thief. The kid was high, was all you said when you came back to us. When I was a boy, and you a god, we flew to Puerto Rico. You said, my grandfather was the mayor of Utuado. His name was Buenaventura. That means good fortune. I believed in your grandfather's name. I heard the tree frogs chanting to each other all night. I saw a banana leaf and elephant palms sprouting from the mountain's belly. I gnawed the mango's pit, and the sweet yellow hair stuck between my teeth. I said to you, you came from another planet. How'd you do it? You said, every morning, just before I woke up, I saw the mountains. Every morning, I see the mountains. In Utuado, 3 sisters, all in their 70s, all bedridden, all Pentecostales who only left the house for church, lay sleeping on mattresses spread across the floor when the hurricane gutted the mountain, the way a butcher slices open a dangled pig, and a rolling wall of mud buried them, leaving the 4th sister to stagger into the street, screaming like an unheeded prophet about the end of the world. In Utuado, a man who cultivated a garden of aguacate and carambola, feeding the avocado and star fruit to his nieces from New York, saw the trees in his garden beheaded all at once like the soldiers of a beaten army, and so hanged himself. In Utuado, a welder and a handyman rigged a pulley with a shopping cart to ferry rice and beans across the river where the bridge collapsed, witnessed the cart swaying above so many hands that raised a sign that told the helicopters, Campamento Los Olvidados, Camp of the Forgotten. Los Olvidados? Wait, 7 hours in line for a government meal of Skittles and Vienna sausage, or a tarp to cover the bones of a house with no roof as the fungus grows on their skin from sleeping on mattresses drenched with the spit of the hurricane. They drink the brown water waiting for microscopic monsters in their bellies to visit plagues upon them. A nurse says, these people are going to have an epidemic. These people are going to die. The president flips rolls of paper towels to a crowd at a church in Guaynabo, Zeus lobbing thunderbolts on the locked ward of his delusions. Down the block, cousin Ricardo, Bernice's boy, says that somebody stole his can of diesel. I heard somebody ask you once what Puerto Rico needed to be free, and you said, 3 pulgadas de sangre en la calle, 3 inches of blood in the street. Now, 3 inches of mud flow through the streets of Utuado, and troops patrol the town as if guarding the vein of copper in the ground, as if a shovel digging graves in the backyard might strike the ore below, as if La Brigada swinging machetes to clear the road might remember the last uprising. I know you are not God. I have the proof. 7 pounds of ashes in a box on my bookshelf. Gods do not die, and yet I want you to be God again. Stride from the crowd to seize the president's arm before another roll of paper towels sails away. Thunder Spanish obscenities in his face. Banish him to a ruthless rainstorm in Utuado so he unravels one soaked sheet after another till there is nothing left but his cardboard heart. I promised myself I would stop talking to you, white box of gray grit. You were deaf even before you died. Hear my promise now. I will take you to the mountains where houses lost like ships at sea rise, blue and yellow from the mud. I will open my hands. I will scatter your ashes. In Utuado. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martine. You had me a little teary. Thank you to your father's work, and thank you to your work as a tenement lawyer and all the work that you do with your poems. I want to shout out all the organizers who are watching, my partner, who's a big part of why I'm here in Florida. We are still fighting. We will not stop fighting. And I think every day that we show up for one another, we're doing the best that we can. We take each day at a time. I'm going to close. I wanted to do this. There's one poem that's from my book that's pretty small, but because Martine, you're here, I wanted to read this poem. It's basically for all the folks in East New York, Brooklyn, and all the people who are grappling with this moment. This poem was written a while ago, but it brings me joy. There's also, my grandmother's Cuban, so a big part of the reason why I wanted to read this poem too was that the Cuban community has done so much to try to help people abroad, and America continues to use the embargo as a reason to not allow Cuban doctors into the country who could actually help and be saving lives. So it's really important that if you care about actually saving lives, that you push the government also to allow medicine into this country. And so shout out to the Cuban doctors. This poem is called If Ever You Find Yourself on the J Train. If ever you find yourself on the J train, get off at Cleveland Street. You will discover a neighborhood of noise. The music will make your hips laugh. The concrete is a pasture of broken nerves. More importantly, head toward the house shrouded under a ragged shawl of some amused sky. This is 61 Ashford Street. An old woman called my grandmother spends most summers on the front porch. If you visit when I am a little girl, you will see me sitting next to her in a beach chair, agitated by humid spirits and smoke. She blows ghosts from her lips, fashioning cigarettes between her fingers like magic wands. Her arms ripple like the branches of willows. Her hands are ancient. I have watched them soften the necks of chickens, how the blood drips from her wrists like syrup, the stick and moist before falling. She is a conjured woman, and Cuba is stubborn for her tongue. When she came here to this house of magic and galaxies, I wonder if she ever longs for her country, if a santera ever misses her God. That's for all the workers, the magic workers out there. And then I'll end with this one. This is a recent poem. Thank you all for staying and bearing with us and listening. There's so many people who are saying great things so that y'all can't see, but on the feedback. I struggle as someone that works in organizing constantly to grappling with the parts of myself, the poet and the organizer, and how to show up and also provide space for self. And in that moment, in this moment, thinking about how many people are burned out often as they're organizing, and people who are often comfortable being in isolation and being in solitude and away from doing the work. I think there's a moment where we need to balance the scales. And if you're someone that has been able to sit out and take a seat while other people are on the streets and organizing and spending hours and nights of meetings and trying to fight back, I think this is the moment we need everybody who's been sitting out and sitting back to stand up and to take the load, because some of us are weary. So this poem doesn't have a title. I started 2020 jumping 7 waves for Yemaya on an Ipanema beach. 4 flowers hand dipped in prayer, they did not survive the undertow. I was the whole fireworks show while my love closed his eyes, impatient with my joy. A hunger for more than fighting. Please, can we be meaningless now and leave America where it's at? The whole village in my chest is tired of weeping. Let's organize the heart, community. I'm toothing the picket signs out of my poems as we speak. Maybe I'm not a good revolutionary. I am not guided by love. I want to be it. I want to be drenched. I want to sweat and stink of love. I want to lay and not know where the day begins or ends. To be held in my own arms longer than a 2-week vacation. I want to be a poem that never works, that does not resonate with anyone, to be a poem you cannot share. So alive, it is so. I sashayed into the new year, Iboga heckling my veins, set on being unafraid and triggerless, all revelation and rested shoulders. I caught a fever in Bahia, or an ancestor told me, take a seat, write. It is time to write. Catch these poems before you whine about how we did not answer. This year was a dedication to Florida water, the cleansing. Little did I know the whole world would be rinsing too. Everyone is a running faucet, blood on their hands, can't face ourselves and one another. The vision came to me in Egypt, and there was nowhere for a lie to hide. I saw God escape religion like a breeze. Every sunset, a new download, what felt like 50-hour days, or a conversation with the metallic scarab that did not make sense until it did. I could see the very beginning and the end. It wasn't so much that it was a big bang, more like a sneeze, the earth shaking us off like a bad cold. So very entitled, convinced our lives are worth something more than now. None of us are too good to suffer. Miami taught me the art of killing a mosquito. The other day, I planted a bed of healing herbs. My love brought me 2 butterflies he found on his walk, broken wings hanging from his fingertips. They sat between the rosemary and thyme, incapable of flying, all flutter and might. To love, fear is a spirit I will not let in. Cradling a metaphor, the year is not yet over.
Thank you for having us and for reading your beautiful poems to take us home.
Thank you guys all for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for offering your poems. Please, everyone, look out for all these poets. They are incredible.
Thanks for bringing us together.
I'm going to continue bringing poets together, so please offer suggestions. Poetry for the People will probably be reaching out to all of you to try to get interviews with each of you, or some of you if you allow. We will be continuing to take homemade remedies. Thank you, Haymarket Books. Thank you, Bakehouse Art Center. Thank you, Ben Connor. Thank you, Armin. Thank you, Poetry for the People. And thank you, John, who's from Haymarket, and all of your work today helping us with the graphics. Any final words? There is one thing I wanted to share before we closed out, and it's not too long, but one of the things that we used for the artwork for the flyer today was to focus on bread and roses. And a big reason why we wanted to focus on that was thinking about the fact that poetry is often seen as a luxury. And so I want to leave everyone with this, that art and culture is integral to our liberation, our freedom, and our imagination. And Helen Todd once wrote, in respect of all women who were fighting for decent wages, that not at once, but woman is the mothering element in the world. Her vote will go toward helping forward the time when life's bread, which is home, shelter, and security, and the roses of life, music, education, nature, and books, shall be the heritage of every child that is born in the country, in the government of which she has a voice. So I say to you all, bread for all, and their roses too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aja.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone and thank you for everyone, every poet.
Thank you, Aja. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Love y'all.
Thanks.
Poetry
All of you.
lives.
Gracias. Thank
So
you.
much love, so much love, so much love.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we're off live now. Hold on.